Well, ladies and gentlemen, at the time of recording, it's rather late on my side, and rather cold. But with that being said, let's get straight into the news. But before we do, can I yet again remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It really does help. And if you want to support the work that I do here, you're welcome to buy me a coffee. The link is in the description box below. So let's get on to the news. And you know what? There's only one news story really worth talking about. And it's the GNU. Because as of the time of recording, the DA is still in it, despite saying they were going to leave, despite then asking the ANC to kick them out. As of right now, they're still there, and there is actually a big reason why. Now, I must say, before I actually get onto the whole scenario of what's actually going on with the DA, I find the ANC's approach to this really distasteful, and I'm going to work through everything and hopefully show you why I think what I think. So at the weekend, let's start off by saying that obviously everybody is scared that if the DA leaves, that it opens up the door for the EFF and the MK party. And this is what Julius Malema had to say about the entire scenario.
We can promise you now, we will never work in a government that includes the DA. We will never work in a government that includes Freedom Front Plus. Those are the people who killed our own people. When we say this is the enemy, if you don't know how the enemy looks like, just look at DA, just look at Freedom Front Plus. Those are the enemies of progress, and we will never work with them. The ANC, if it wants us to vote with them because they no longer have numbers, they must chase the DA out of the executive. Then we can consider working together.
So as you can see, Julius is saying, kick out the DA and we'll speak. But before that, not really prepared to deal with you. But it's not just the DA goes deal. It's the Freedom Front Plus as well. So any GNU without the DA would have to also be without the Freedom Front Plus, and that does cause numerous issues around the provinces. Needless to say that let us not forget that it's the Freedom Front Plus that helped the ANC take the Northern Cape. Kick out the Freedom Front Plus and you've got issues elsewhere. So it's not as simple as just saying, well, the DA and the Freedom Front Plus must leave, because if they did leave, there are other logistical issues to consider. So why is the DA still there? Well, if you watched my video on Friday, you would have noticed that there was a meeting with some business individuals. Let's call them what the media is calling them, big business. They're effectively the funders. But these aren't just the funders of the DA, they're also the funders of the ANC. And big business has met with both the DA and the ANC and told them both that they need to figure out a way to work together to basically save the economy. Now, there's a reason for that, and that is because with all the news of the DA leaving the GNU and the potential GNU collapsing, over 1 trillion rand, 1 trillion rand, that's a serious amount of money, was wiped off the JSE. And obviously the pound to the rand and the dollar to the rand is not trading very well, which shows you that there's a high degree of trade jitters. Now, at the weekend, the ANC's spokesperson actually spoke about this quite a lot and tried to explain the situation. And according to them, very similar to what I said in one of my videos last week, the idea at the moment is that if they can retain the DA in the GNU, the DA effectively becomes the buffer against Trump. The DA can go do the negotiations, and they can effectively protect the ANC from Trump's wrath. Now, this comes on the back of the Trump administration basically implying that they had no interest in negotiating with the ANC, who they found to be untrustworthy. Now, the question that was asked by the ANC's senior exec was basically, will it work? Will the DA actually be able to protect them? And the answer to that was they're not sure. Because it may be a case that even if they save the DA there to basically safeguard them against Trump, there's no guarantee that the safeguard will be successful. Well, then why keep them around? The next question is, okay, well, if they leave, it will damage the economy. And they don't want to damage the economy because it has knock-on impacts to both the funders of the ANC and the DA. Big business, if you will. So why keep them around? Because effectively, is it just economic? But then the question is, will those economics still suffer because of the tariffs that are going on against the country? And will the ANC senior execs still feel Trump's wrath when he does sanctions against them directly? And these were all the questions that the ANC was asking at the weekend when they were trying to figure out whether or not they still want to keep the DA around. And the answer at the time of recording is they don't know. They are hoping that somehow they can navigate their way through all of this, but they're not sure. And this led the ANC spokesstooge to say, well, effectively, if staying with the DA costs them voters and it alienates them from their voters, they'd rather just not alienate their voters. And they openly say it may tank the economy and Trump may sanction the living daylights of the country, but they would rather save their votes than save the economy and the country. And I think this says everything you need to know about the ANC. As we've always said, party first, country second. And every time they pretend otherwise, they show us with the things that they say that this will always remain the case. Now, interestingly, Paul Mashatile at the weekend also was asked what he thought about the DA, and he described the DA as untrustworthy. I think that's kind of rich coming from an ANC politician, don't you? But in any case, he described the DA as untrustworthy because he said during the negotiations, the DA was attempting to renegotiate the Bella Bill and the Expropriation Without Compensation Bill, the Expropriation Act. Now, the reason that he said that this was untrustworthy is because these bills had already been agreed in the last administration, and all they really needed was the president's signature, which they've now got. So why would you negotiate these things now? It doesn't make sense. They're already laws in the statute books. And he has a point, but he also misses the mark. And that's because there were laws that the DA felt shouldn't be on the statute books. And they wished to have them amended, which would require ANC approval, which you could get by leveraging the budget. That's how this works, buddy. But in any case, I find it ironic that they have sat there all weekend discussing how they could mend the relationship, but immediately are on the phone to the media to tell them how untrustworthy their coalition partner is. Seems really stupid. But hey, what do I know? I'm not a politician. In any case, Imbalula also at the weekend came up with some very interesting things, and apparently he was the guy who was negotiating with the DA. I found that strange. I didn't actually expect that, but he was apparently negotiating with the DA around the budget, and he was doing this independently of the execs of the ANC, because the ANC execs were trying to gain support elsewhere. And apparently they've now chastised Imbalula for trying to save the GNU. Ironically, Imbalula was doing the right thing, and he's the guy who got in trouble for it. Like, make it make sense. But in any case, at the time of recording, don't really know what's happening. Apparently, Gordon Guana is trying to keep himself calm, because at the moment he did all this budget stuff on the basis that he'd have some economic growth. And now with Trump there, Trump's like, hold my beer. And Trump's going to destroy all the budgets anyway. So all of this kerfuffle over a budget that, to be frank, might mean nothing because Trump's changed the rules of the game. And really, we need to be thinking about economic growth at the moment because you can't rely on foreign parties anymore. You also can't rely on commodity booms. You have to get back to the root of economic growth. And that requires a drastic, absolute reform of the state. And I don't think the ANC has the appetite to do this. Neither does the EFF and neither does MK. At the moment, I'm not even sure the DA have an appetite for it. I don't know who does, to be frank. But I do think there's still a grand degree of irony in all of this. And that was that when Action SA supported the budget, they said, hey, everybody, we saved you a VAT increase. And then the ANC said, hold my beer. Yep, nope, we're getting one anyway. And they were like, hey, is that what we voted for? And they were like, did you read the fine print, you morons? Action SA is just such a clownish party. I still cannot fathom who the hell voted for these clowns. In any case, the whole scenario with the DA and the ANC is no further clearer. They still seem to be at each other's throats. as far as I can tell, the ANC want the DA to leave, the DA want to get fired. It's like, then at least they can turn around to their funders and say it was the other person's fault, and neither person is blinking. So it looks like whilst neither person is blinking, the status quo continues. At least that's my view at the moment. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Until tomorrow, bye.